Hi, welcome to Peanut Butter Jelly Co. Today we're going to be talking about what to look out for when you're renting your first apartment, Sustainability Edition. So, this is something that I didn't think I'd be filming on a zero waste channel, but I thought it was very important because houses are something that we don't always have a lot of control, especially if we're not building it ourselves, and things to do with sustainability. And as a student, I'm living in the apartment that I have rented for the first time. Before, I lived in my university's accommodation, and then I moved here with my boyfriend, and we've been living here for nearly 2 years. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because there are certain things, actually quite a lot of things, that have hindered my sustainability journey because of the accommodation itself. So I really wanted to cover some things that are important for you to look at, especially for people who are younger than me and are starting their zero waste journey and are considering moving out or coming to university. And I think this is important. So right, let's get started. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention that don't actually affect me that much, but I think will be important. One is location. Where I am, everything is really close together. My university, all the shops, so I didn't have to worry about accommodation wise, but most people probably don't live in areas like these, and location is something that's really important to think about. Whether you own a car or you're planning to cycle or use public transport, that all affects your carbon footprint. Most people probably opt to live further out, especially as a student. Houses are cheaper, but then you do have to consider your transportation and making sure that there are available public transports, or you have a place to store a bike. Even though everything's really close by to me, I did have a bike with me, but I ended up living quite high up. As you can see, that's a rooftop, and there was no sheds, nothing, a very tight corridor, so I couldn't keep it downstairs in the corridor, and we ended up having to take the bikes apart to store them up here to then take downstairs, put them together, and it was just a faff, and then we never ended up using them, which is really sad because I absolutely love cycling, and there are certain places that are a bit further away that I would have loved to get to, especially because the public transport where I am isn't reliable at all. Another thing that didn't affect me too much but you want to consider is things like energy suppliers. My accommodation is paid for but doesn't include bills apart from water, so I have to cover my own electrical bills, electricity bills, and that gives me the power to choose who provides it for me. So I got to choose my Wi-Fi provider, and I got to change my electricity provider. Luckily all my appliances are electric, so I don't have to worry about things like gas, but I chose Octopus Energy. That was the most sustainable option that I thought was available to me. I have yet to fully dig into them. I will be doing a video about that, but if you do want to change energy suppliers, I actually have a link down below. But I know some accommodations, especially when it comes to being a student, actually come with the bills included, and in that cases you don't have control over your energy supplier. And I mean, I guess your landlords could be helpful. You can ask them, they might luckily be with the best option already, or you can ask them to change. I feel like I doubt that happens because you're a student, you're probably only going to be living there for a year, and it's probably not worth it for them. So that's something that you need to take into consideration. With that as well comes having a smart meter. I luckily have a reader downstairs where I can check every month and update my system, because especially during these COVID times, they can't always get someone in to check your electricity reading, and that way you can also monitor how much you're using up and cut down in certain areas if you're using too much, and also monitor your budgets. I wish I considered this and asked beforehand, but my landlords are very iffy about me going down and checking them. You have to get like an extra key, and the door doesn't have a handle, so you have to pull it by the key. And during the winter times, like right now, the doors like expand for some reason, and I ripped my coat trying to open it because they had to like kind of go like that so it doesn't hurt your hands, and then pull on the key, and it's very dodgy. So make sure you have an easily accessible electricity reader, or like get one that you can plug in somewhere and check it better, because that's something that's really annoyed me. It's not the most, it doesn't affect my sustainability that much, but it's something useful to have. that I would really recommend. So one thing to look at that I haven't really been able to do much is the quality of the housing. These are double glazed windows, but they're very weird. They open like up, and you can see there's like condensation at the top and at the bottom, and most of them don't actually lock properly, which is great, letting the cold in, and we get a lot of mold. I think this is common a lot for the area, but I've never had to experience mold. My parents' house was, I mean, I guess it better insulated, or we just had warmer weather, but we still had winters, and the walls actually get mold on them sometimes, and so does the bathroom, and that is something that wasn't disclosed. I don't know if it should be, but definitely if you have the chance, speak to the previous tenants and make sure the landlords aren't present, because personally, whenever someone comes for a viewing, if the landlords or someone that works for them is present, I tend to just not to be honest, because I don't know. But if they're not present and someone asks me how they are, I will be honest, because I don't want anybody to go through awful housing. I also feel like a lot of landlords expect that because you're a student, you don't have standards, and I've always enjoyed having a clean apartment and having everything clean, and that actually quite shocks me, that the lack of maintenance. Like when we moved in, I did loads of cleaning, like it was a mess, and the mold really gets to me because I had to purchase a black mold remover which came in plastic, which stressed me out. I have yet to even research alternatives, but I'm just using up that bottle, but it's clearly full of bad chemicals. And yeah, so I also don't know why people don't like tile or laminate their ceiling in the bathroom so that you don't get mold on like paint. Is that not a thing? I feel like that should be a thing. Anyway, the quality of the housing, yeah, so looking at the windows, the general structure, like these windows, I'm sat on the floor. This is how low the windows are. They're also tiny. You can see from the outside, the lower windows are bigger, and they just get smaller and smaller until we get the smallest windows. So that's the thing. If you want to keep plants as well, make sure the lighting's good. A lot of the time when they're viewing, they turn all the lights on, so it gives you like false hope. And I was gonna have like a little table in front of all the windows, but like you can't have a table this size. And I only get lighting good enough in the living room, in the bedroom. The living room is just dark all the time. It's awful, and that also means you spend a lot more money on electricity, on lighting. So that is something really important. Make sure you check the windows. Check the windows are good, and take pictures, because we didn't take pictures of when we viewed, and then I had to rely on like online pictures, which are so much worse. And also, if you're being showed several apartments, like there's 4 apartments in this building, and we were only shown 2 of them, and none of them were this one, because the landlords were all replying to me, and by the time they got back, the apartment that we asked for was taken, but they're like, we've still got this one you can take. It's the exact same. It's not the exact same. The windows are tinier. You've got an extra floor to go up on. So make sure that you're shown all of your options before you choose. And if you don't have many options and there are more apartments, don't choose the top floor. Not only is it going to be rough to get up, but also any issues with the infrastructure are gonna affect you. We've had leaks in the ceiling so many times. I'm looking at one right now that I told them about, and they're like, oh, it doesn't seem to be getting bigger, so it's fine. Last time we had a leak last year, and it took them a year to fix it. And they only fixed it because they were doing viewings. And they actually used spray paint instead of normal paint, and got spray paint all over my cutlery and fruits. That was great. Okay, I'm getting on a ramble now. Like, let's get into another point. Regarding like the quality of the actual apartment itself, something that's important is of course the insulation. Of course, that's something that you might not have much knowledge about, but you can also talk to the previous tenants about that, which is something that I really wish I did, is get in contact with the previous tenants. You should just ask your landlords if they can put you in contact, or just speak to them on the side and ask them about, during the winter, do they find that they have to put the heating on a lot? Because again, especially if you're paying your own bills, that will add up a lot. I tried to save on it, but a lot of the time I can't help it. And then there's also the issue of mold when you don't have that on. So I do really, really recommend you talk to the previous tenants. if you're showing people around, that you're very open about that, but also ask the tenants, because most likely the landlords won't lie, but they'll sort of attempt to tone it down more than it is. Next thing to mention is fridge freezer. Something that is so important to zero waste is being able to food prep or freeze things that you can't use up to stop them being wasted. I was so excited to move out of halls, have my own kitchen, be able to make so much food prep, freeze everything, and then I didn't bother checking or asking about the fridge freezer when we came. And then when it came to moving in, I was like, I don't remember where it is. It was behind one of the drawers. I'll insert a video here. And it's the tiniest thing ever. It's less space than we had when we were in halls, and it's just been horrible. I hate it. We nearly considered buying one of those like extra like freezers, but that would have just been a faff to get upstairs and then to sell again, or to even source and to even find space to put it. But we've had to live with that, and I'm so excited to move again, to actually consider looking at and have a proper fridge freezer. Oh my gosh, if we can get a normal full-size fridge freezer, that would be amazing. That's like my biggest thing. Make sure you have a good fridge freezer, because food preservation and cooking and making things from scratch is something that's a very big part of my zero waste journey, and is really badly been hindered by this accommodation and the fridge freezer here. Realizing that some of these points are very random, but I feel like they're quite important. And another random one is the location of your landlords. A lot of people, or at least I thought a lot of people, when they buy an apartment block to rent out to students or just to anybody, you'd live close by, right? So you can keep tabs on it, be there to do maintenance checks, fix things when they get broken. No, my landlords live like 4 hours drive away, and then they employ workers from even further away. And this really doesn't make sense to me, because whenever something happens, there's always the excuse, especially during COVID, that they can't send anyone through, even if it may be quite important. And then I feel like it's a waste of money and resources for them anyway, so it doesn't make sense why they would do that, employing people from London, which is so far away. So really make sure they're close by, ask them in some way so that you know that if something happens, they'll be there to sort it out. I have heard of my friends who have landlords that live really close by, sometimes even come and clean because they like to take care of the property that they own, which honestly is totally what I do. Like, that's a thing I want to do in the future when I have enough money, is buy properties and upcycle them using secondhand materials and then rent them out to people that I'll probably interview. I don't know if that's allowed, to make sure that they take care of it, and I'll be there making sure they take care of it, because what's the point in just owning and making money from something that you're not putting effort into? It is a job, you know. It's weird. To build on the point of location, not only are we talking about distance, but the specific place your apartment is at. So for just pure convenience, we chose this apartment because of its location, but also most things are quite close. But it is on the high street. So before COVID happened, certain nights I couldn't get to sleep because there's a Wetherspoons right there, and it would get so loud, and I have a very short temper. I'd get so angry, and I used to get this close to shouting out the window and be, I am that, well, I'd like to think I'm that person, but I'm not. I'm too shy. But definitely consider that, especially if you have exams coming up and then you can't get to sleep. One thing to look out for, which may be kind of random, is appliances. So I really wasn't even considering to look at appliances before. When I was back home, we had an electric, like one of those flat ones where it's glass at the top and a touch screen thingy, so fancy. It wasn't really fancy. And then at university, I can't even remember what ones they had, but then we moved here and it's one of these. I'm very bad with the names. I think it's induction. I don't know. But it's made all the pots black. I even asked my mum why, and she's like, because you don't clean them properly, which is a big lie. I've scrubbed those pots to hell, and they're still black. So I mean, I don't think that's that big of an issue, but if you are very picky about keeping everything looking spick and span and maintaining everything as well as possible, make sure that your hobs are suitable for it, because some will ruin your pots and pans no matter how clean you are, and they are very hard to maintain. I hate having all these nooks and crannies around the toggles and stuff like that to clean. I wish it was just as flat like at my parents' house. And yeah, consider it the furnishing. As a student, you're not going to be looking into buying new furniture. Even if it's secondhand, it can get a bit pricey. And when you're viewing student apartments, most likely the students that are previously living there are still there with all their stuff sprayed out. So it's really important to make sure you get a clear view of what is actually included in the apartment. Whenever we have people viewing the apartments here, I always mention that desk isn't included, this dining table is included, because we actually had to source these things ourselves, including certain appliances like a toaster, kettle and microwave, which I don't know if it's just because we didn't ask, but we weren't told that those weren't included. When we came to view it, they were there, of course, because people use those kinds of appliances. So it's really important to know what you have available and what you might have to look out for before moving in. Something that I was quite shocked at was the lack of desks. It's a 2-bedroom apartment. It's in a student location, so you're expecting students to live there. There was no desks, but there was one chair. It's very weird. This, to finish off, isn't a thing to look out for, but when you end up renting your place, it's something that I would really recommend. And I think it's kind of obvious, but I thought I'd mention it in case it isn't, is to really take care of everything there, especially the things that aren't yours. Things like the hob, things like the washing machine, because not only may they charge you for it later out of your deposit, but also if things break, you don't know where they're sourcing a replacement for that. So we had 2 issues where the hob broke and the oven broke, but only parts of it. And so like the hob, one of the hobs was just completely cold and it wouldn't turn on, and the oven, similar thing, it just would like heat up to lukewarm and then wouldn't go higher up. Instead of trying to fix it, they just removed it and replaced it with a brand new one, which came with a lot of plastic. They just are left on my floor. So that obviously wasn't our fault, but if you do end up moving in where there is newer appliances, or even try maybe, I don't know if you can fix it yourself. I hope they're not watching this. I broke my washing machine door handle, right? Because like I said, I am of a short temper and I'm also very impatient. So I just kind of opened it really roughly, and then it went crack, and then the handle broke, and then we couldn't open it, and there was wet clothes inside. I figured out a way, like I used this wire that I had in my craft room to open the door, but then obviously the handle's still broken, so then we thought, do we report it? I didn't report it. I feel like we should have reported it. I didn't. I just went online, because that's like completely my fault. So I don't know if they would have charged me for a new washing machine, because knowing them, they'd probably not bother fixing it, just get a new one, which is just such a stupid thing to do. Like, it's cheaper for them. So I bought, I think it was £10 for a handle, which first of all was a bit ridiculous, but I didn't have any other choice. And then I fixed it myself, and it's all good now. So obviously don't try and do electrical work yourself, like with the oven and stuff, but yeah, maintaining things yourself save you money and save you from the landlords having to be using bad sources of products. When you finally pick your apartment and you are certain, now I would make sure that you take enough time to really consider all your options, but also don't take too long, because places, especially in student locations, will go like that very fast. We found that even though we replied 5 minutes later, the landlords had some technical issues, got back to us a week later, and the place that we wanted, which was on the bottom floor so that we could keep our bikes there, and had a kind of mini garden as well, was no longer available, shockingly, so we ended up with a worse option. So make sure that you're very on top of things and reply quickly. And that is all from me today. If you have any other tips that you think are really important for students or just first time renters, then let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear it because I will be looking out for my next apartment very soon. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this has been helpful for you for finding your first apartment to rent, and good luck in your sustainable journey. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!